Let's go. All right. Good morning, everyone. It is December 20th, 2018. This is the Helm developer call for talking about anything that goes on in Helm. So what goes on in these kind of discussions is that we first go into any announcements that are happening for any kind of following weeks or anything that's happened in the last week. Then we go into stand-ups. Well, we could do a quick stand-up if we wanted to for this week, but we can also skip that. And then there's also discussions. So we've got a few items on the discussion list. And then we just go into assignments. So for announcements this week, there's a question about having no meeting next week because the holidays. I think that runs into, next Thursday is December 27th. How do people feel about having no meeting for next week? Just going straight into January.
Adnan and I will both be out.
I will be out as well.
I will be out.
Okay, we won't even have quorum, it sounds like. Scott?
I said we go ahead and just do it then.
Yep, let's cancel it. Sounds good to me.
Okay. So we will not have a meeting next week. There's also the Helm 3 repositories working group happening Wednesdays 8:30 to 9 Pacific Standard Time. Josh, did you want to put a quick little blurb about that? Did you put it on there?
Yeah, so I guess next week will also be canceled for this, but starting in January again, I have a calendar every Wednesday 8:30 Pacific. So just trying to keep things going here, and then in discussion I'll give an update on where we're at.
Okay, cool. And then the last thing, Helm Hub is live. Someone posted on there. Did someone want to talk about that quickly?
I put it on there, but Matt, maybe.
Okay.
Sure. If you didn't know, it's kind of like the hub is a place to find out how to install charts from all over the place, whether they are in our stable or incubator repos or by somebody else. And it's kind of a distributed search of repositories. And there are now more than a handful listed there, and we're looking for more. If you go there and go to the About page, you can learn how to add more, but it's the opportunity for us to not centralize all of the charts that are out there, but to really decentralize that while creating a centralized search point. And it's live.
There's 14 repositories right now, including stable and incubator. That's great. And I guess eventually we'll be working on the chart side of things to figure out what the plan is to move charts out of stable, or encourage people to move charts out of stable.
And maybe another quick note would be that we've planned and are working on tools to help people do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just to help
as they come out, we'll announce them.
Yeah.
Because if we don't say it beforehand, then we're not late when we do it later.
Ambiguously speaking, yeah.
All right. And then also Adam pointed out that there was the Helm 2.12.1 patch release that was out yesterday. So it fixed a regression that was introduced in Helm 2.12. So we just reverted a commit over there so then we could retain the existing behavior. So thanks, Adam, for cutting that release yesterday and getting that all through.
Yep, it's the decaf edition.
Excellent.
It was just fixing a regression, so it's not an exciting drink.
So I know for stand-ups we have in the past couple of weeks we've been skipping those. Do we still want to skip those, or do we want to go straight into discussions? Okay.
I can probably speak for everybody. KubeCon.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so we want to start talking about KubeCon and maybe about Helm 3 as well, and then we'll go into the rest of the discussion items.
Yeah, sure. I'll give a quick update on KubeCon and the Helm 3. So KubeCon, the Helm response was awesome. We gave the talk at the end of the last day, and it was extremely well attended. People were interested, asking well thought out questions that were really good at kicking off discussions where, we've added a few issue queues and a few issues to the queue and live assigned them to Josh, which was amazing. And just everybody that was helping answer questions in the front, thank you for doing that. Update on Helm 3. Me and a couple of Matts got together yesterday and actually converted some of the cards into issues that can be broken off and people can start working on. So hopefully that will help alleviate some of the issues around people not knowing how to jump in and start helping out. Yeah,
I was just going to say, if you are somebody who is interested, if you go to the project board, I just dropped the link in, and you're going to see there's a bunch in the backlog that say help wanted. Those are the ones that somebody can go take on and start working on. And there's, in usual cases, there's links off to details, or if you have questions, you can ask them right in the issues and we'll respond.
Yeah, so thanks, Farina, for spearheading that. I think that's all the updates for Helm 3. Not a lot of development work yesterday because most of us were at KubeCon.
All right, so maybe we can start jumping into discussions, and if there's any kind of follow-up as well from KubeCon and whatnot, we can also drop those into there.
Yeah, if anybody else has any comments, just generic on KubeCon that they want to share, you're more than welcome.
A big theme was people are concerned about and want an answer to the migration path between Helm 2 and Helm 3. So that was the issue that we assigned Josh Dolitsky because he volunteered or we voluntold him to do that. But all jokes aside, like that's one of the big themes I saw from the discussion. And so, we heard that. I think it was great that multiple people brought it up, and we definitely want to have an answer for that. Yep.
Yeah, I threw something into discussion about that. I can talk some more about it.
That's all I had.
Okay. So there's one discussion item on here that was a proposal for CRD support. Who posted that and who wants to talk about that one? Okay, go for it now.
So I've been talking in the background with Professor Butcher on this one, and the CRD, the support proposed here is actually pretty intrusive and quite a lot of changes to what Helm does today, especially in Helm 2. It also puts a lot of onus on the user side stuff. And one of the things Matt and I were thinking is there a way to do stuff with the current hook system that is minimally invasive, especially on the end users, to try to solve this?
Can you mute?
No, I can't mute while I'm talking.
I was asking Ken.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
There we go. So that's what we were looking at is there a simpler way to solve this that's less intrusive? Because some of the design ideas in here talk about, okay, every CRD that might need to be updated, if it's different from what's in the cluster, you fail. And then you have to opt into each one you want to manually update, right? When you're updating these, that's a pretty long, verbose experience. And is that really required? Right? Like, what are the use cases? What situations? Because it's a lot of changes, right? So every time you want to update CRDs because maybe the description field changed, and maybe you change 3 of them, you have to, at the Helm CLI, opt into doing all 3, right? That's kind of a big deal, right? Especially on the UX side. Is that actually an experience that needs a problem solved, or is there a simpler, easier way to do this today? And I don't know the answer, but and I haven't really thought about it, but maybe there's a way we can do it with hooks. Or maybe there's a way to do it with logic using templates. I don't know. But this
Yeah.
is one of the things we wanted to discuss. Does anybody have any other feedback? Because originally I just posted it in here and was hoping folks would read it, but then we got into a conversation this morning.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I've kind of skimmed through it, and my initial thoughts were similar, where it was hard to understand the user experience behind it.
Yeah, and also while CRDs are the Matt made a great point that while CRDs are the big thing today, right? They're not GA, which means they could go away, and they actually replaced TPRs, which were going to be the thing, and those went away in favor of CRDs. And then there was the open service broker and the service catalog, and we've seen how it was the highlight of the future and how it is not such a shining example anymore, and yet it's not out in a GA form. And so there's a lot of what?
Aggregate.
Yeah, aggregate API. So there's a lot of these things that were the thing and were the hype, but it wasn't GA. And so to bake in formal support for something that's not GA with such extensive nature, maybe it does end up becoming GA because it is the hot thing these days. But it could be overcome just like those last things were. How do we handle it knowing that it's not a GA thing in Kubernetes as well?
My initial thoughts on whether we support what level of support we give something for GA. I totally agree that we shouldn't have a solution that is too intrusive to user experience. If we can find a generic way of helping end users, because CRDs are obviously a thing, I think we should. I think a lot of people are using them. Some big projects are using them. But what level is?
So I got a question since y'all are here. There's the capabilities where you can see if something's available in a cluster.
Hmm?
Does that include CRDs or just core objects?
We have our own version of it where there's capabilities, and that is around features. Because there's capabilities in Kubernetes itself, and then we have our own definition of capabilities that is in Helm. And our definition of capabilities includes available API resources.
Yes. And the available API resources, does that include CRDs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because what it does is it actually fetches from the OpenAPI spec.
Okay, because then you could do things like if the capability has it, then install it. If not, and you could actually do some of this with your values file by passing in Booleans on what you wanted, right? And so we could do a certain amount of this today with patterns without changing things around the capabilities API, right? The capabilities for what's installed. I'm wondering if there's a pattern there with minimal changes we could start to do some of this. I'll think about it next year. Okay.
Okay.
But it sounds like we're in agreement. Nobody else gave an opinion, but on we want to try to control the disruption of CRDs in the Helm interface. But if there's a solution that we can help out the process, then we want to support that.
Yeah, and if there's even a way that we could do it today we haven't thought of with the current feature set, and we just have to document the patterns, that would really help people get going because it wouldn't require changes from us or even upgrading Helm necessarily to the latest that's not paired with their cluster version for all those people still running 1.9, because there's lots of people running Kubernetes 1.9. and 110. Yeah, it's out there. I know some people like that. I even know some cloud providers that default to that. But that's another story. Okay, yeah, let's see what we can come up with. I might poke at this next year because it's going to be a bigger deal for us because we do lots of CRD things. Okay. Matt, you can go on to the next thing now, I guess.
Okay. So one thing on the discussion items, I know that this was probably discussed over at the deep dive, was the Helm 2 to Helm 3 upgrade story. Did anyone want to take point on this discussion item?
So I put this on here. That links to the issue that I was voluntold to do in the community repo. But basically, people are concerned in general about their existing Helm 2 setup, and when Helm 3 drops, how hard is it going to be to get there? So the suggestion was that I had at the talk, and then put more in the issue was, let's have a plugin. You run it one time. You can start it with a dry run, and it'll basically say, for example, this config map is turning into these new CRD resources that Helm 3 uses, and if you remove the dry run, it'll actually do the conversion. But I think that that's actually just one of many. That's one of many upgrade criteria. I'm not a project manager. I don't know, criterias. So I'm wondering what's the best way to kind of come up with what's all the different things that are changing, and have one tool that can help people with that.
I think there's two things that can kind of happen like asynchronously. One is what should the what should happen with like old releases, essentially. So like don't even think about like what specifically is changing about all of them, just what should the user experience be. You know, like there was ideas about like not converting anything but letting the resources live, and
Right.
You know, just essentially severing the release from the resources, and then some way of reconnecting like a new release to those resources, so you're not actually deleting all the resources and stuff. So I think that is actually the more challenging part, is figuring out like what should the behavior be.
Yeah, so I mean, without going,
like that's kind of irrelevant to like the story for the users.
Well, so maybe think about it from the end user perspective, though, right? Wouldn't it be, what would the 80% of people want? And my guess is they just want to convert their old Helm 2 configuration, what's stored in the cluster, which is config maps right now, or secrets, into, you know, the custom resources and secrets they're going to have now, right? And reformatting the schema. So, right. So if that's the 80% case, then what tool could do that and a dry run and deal with both config maps and secrets in the V2 storage? What tool could do that? And you just take something that says, we're going to take the information as it is, migrate it to the new information, right? And that percent tool might hit like the 80% use case, right?
So there's one part of the system that I'm a little bit concerned about, and that is the proposal about us switching over from a two-way merge patch, which we have right now, from current state, updated state. And then I think at the deep dive, there was a talk about potentially going towards a three-way merge patch. Would that, if we converted Helm 2 or Helm 2 releases over to Helm 3 like CRD releases in the namespace that the release is going, is there a way that we could do like convert it from a two-way merge patch strategy over to a three-way merge patch, or is that going to be a breaking thing and it's not going to be as easy to migrate over. The use case that I'm trying to think of.
You won't be able to do that because if you're doing a release on like an upgrade on a release that is Helm 2 and you're using Helm 3, well, when it goes to look up the first of the diffs, it's going to look at the previous release.
Mm.
So it's going to do a get release first. And if it doesn't find a Helm 3 release for that release because it's Helm 2, it'll just assume that nothing's in there, and it will try to recreate everything from scratch.
And
So
it needs to get converted before you can do an upgrade on it, because otherwise it doesn't have anything to look up to compare it to.
Right.
Yeah, so a tool that converted the old data store, right, just like a database schema migration, right, would solve this. And so you're just taking the data from the old structure, converting it into the new structure. And so you release something with Helm v2. The last time you do a conversion over, and then all of your commands from then on need to be Helm v3, and it can pick up from the Helm v2 data that had been migrated to the new format, right?
Yeah, and for safety also, like, we don't even have to like migrate. Like, we don't have to modify anything. Like, we can just recreate those resources as Helm 3 ones. So if anything goes wrong, you can just fire up your Helm 2 client and still interact with those releases. And then that way you can convert everything, validate it works with Helm 3, and then you can do your garbage collection on any old Helm 2 stuff, or you can archive it, or
right. And the three-way, and so the concern I had with the three-way merge patch is that that it's basically, we'd be diffing against the release CRD, we'd be diffing against the new release CRD that we'd be, so basically you do the conversion, and then you do the upgrade.
You're going down a path that it's not gonna affect that. Like
Think about it this way.
Merge patch is only, it won't have any effect, like switching to that, on like the migration story. Like, they're two completely independent things.
Right. Okay.
Because if you migrate, all that old data is now in the new format, so it treats us as it's been deployed by Helm 3, right? Yeah. Because it's just got the history in a Helm 3 format. It doesn't matter. And so we basically have a few steps that can be independently of each other. A dry run step to make sure all your existing data can be transferred. There isn't some hiccup in it, right? Maybe a backup step where it exports all those files to some directory locally because you want to backup because you might break things, right? And a restore from that. And then maybe a sync command that syncs from the old to the new. And then maybe a garbage collect command that cleans up the old stuff. And you have those separately and you just tell people how to use them.
No, yeah, I totally understand. It was, the one thing that I was concerned about was if on a Helm install, the deployments or anything that's going on there would be, would have any attached annotations on there, but it doesn't sound like it would be. We'd just be going against the current live state of the pod or the deployment or anything that we're trying to upgrade from. So we're not necessarily, like Helm 3 won't necessarily be attaching annotations to do the three-way merge patch. So that's not a concern.
We're not diffing based on annotation. We're not moving to the same logic as apply, because we can't do that, because apply acts on a single resource. We are still diffing against the previous release.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not like
merge patches between the previous release, just like we do now.
Yeah.
And then also what's live in state, which is like what apply does.
Okay. Thank you for rolling me through that. Sorry, Michelle.
Yeah, and just real quick, Michelle, just to button this up, and then I'll pass it to you. So the actually, I'm going to start going down upgrade stuff. So go ahead, Michelle. I don't want to divert us too much.
Okay, and there's also 2 minutes left on this call. So I think, and I'm going to pull out my most authentic Matt Farina. I think that we should start a document and just write down all the steps, because we're like talking about building a lot of tools. I don't know if we need a tool for every little thing, but maybe we do. That's fine. so maybe we should just write down a doc with all the steps and then produce a blog post with the major architectural changes so people understand, because we had to repeat a few times the data store changes, even just at the Helm session. Even though that was a big core central point, we had to repeat that during the Q&A a few times. So we should write a doc. That's my
Yeah, I think we're all kind of saying the same thing. I think we're all kind of loosely saying that, like, we need to start with what should this tool do? Like, what should the behavior be? Not so much implementation of a tool, but like,
So I think somewhere we can start is if we create a Helm 2 to 3 repo, and that can be the home for docs and any tools, any scripts, or do you think it's more appropriate in the Helm docs?
I think community is the appropriate place for it right now.
I would put it in proposal. Create a proposal for this is what we want to do, and don't outline the technical details of how it happens, but the behavioral details for what we want to happen, and then we can modify the technical later in a repo or some other tool later. But I think we need to document the behavior things, like we were talking about here, on how it'll operate. And I also wanted to say, I think one of the things we're trying to avoid here is strategic merge patching, right? We're not going to do that stuff. But there's also server-side apply that by the time we release Helm v3 should be in all release clusters, right? Maybe. The apply logic was moved server-side. Did you know that?
Yeah, but weren't you just saying that people are still using 1.9?
Yeah, but are we going to tell them they can use Helm v3 with Kubernetes 1.9? Or do we say you have to be using maybe a supported released version of Kubernetes, not something that's many releases out of support? We could set that as a requirement. Hey, if you're going to use 1.9, I'm sorry, Helm v3 doesn't work for you. We could do that, If you're using something that nobody supports anymore.
You're giving me way too much power.
You already had it. Already had it.
All right, so just kind of quickly, Josh, do you want to give a very quick update on the Helm?
I can give a 10-second thing. The overall thing is that Helm charts will be able to be stored in a container registry, essentially fulfilling the vision of app registry long ago. So we're working with Jimmy and starting to talk to people from OCI and Docker, so trying to get that squared away. And this should also apply to CNAB bundles as well.
Yeah, and for anyone who is not into the conversation, who is interested in the conversation as well, all this conversation is currently happening over at the OCI side. So there is an open containers dev mailing list. And we're all kind of like involved in there right now. We're currently talking about how to store those things in the registry, or at least how to store that kind of data and how we move anything over. I think right now it's just kind of like exasperating the API and seeing if it can store arbitrary data.
So I can give a little update on that. I read the spec and I read the code for a tool to stick CNAB bundles into OCI, and it looks like it'll all work today without any spec changes. It's a little bit of a bastardization of what they've got there, but I think it technically works because you can just stick arbitrary blobs into a container repository and link things together. I think it all technically works right now.
Yeah, and there's a piece of code that Docker put out that already converts CNAB to OCI. So I'm basically gonna fork that and make it work with Helm, I think.
Yeah, it can store those arbitrary data points, but then as well, the API endpoints is one point that we've had to discuss with the open, or at least with the OCI team, is that distribution has like certain endpoints that are like /manifest/ whatever. And sometimes when we're dealing with data, it's not Docker image manifest that we're dealing with, it's arbitrary data. So there are, thing from I heard from Stephen Day is that it's something that they're interested in doing as well, for sure, for doing the arbitrary data. And the spec does allow it. It's just a matter of exercising it, and there's probably bugs in the system to store that arbitrary data. So we just need to figure that out and then fix those bugs and get those in.
Yeah, the text technically allows us to do it today.
Yeah.
But there are things that we could enhance the spec with to do it so you don't actually have a Helm chart as a layer in an image somewhere, right? Because that would be suck, right?
Yeah.
Have a Helm chart as an image in a layer for a container image. There's the possibility for those kind of screw ups to happen in the current way we would do it. And I'm sure we could put some smarter stuff and spec it out that helped it. So that's some of the stuff we'll look into in addition to Josh trying to make it work with the current setup.
Is there a spec? So at this point, I think we can just go into assignments. So we've got issue Sherpa, we've got meeting lead, and we've got notes for not for next week, because we agreed earlier in the meeting that there won't be another meeting next week because we just won't have quorum. So does anyone want to take any of those three?
I can do notes.
Okay.
I can moderate. I'll be here.
Okay. Is anyone going to be more or less present during the holiday season?
Yeah, I have already, I was issue Sherpa, but not like a great issue Sherpa for the last few weeks. But I am slowly going through the issues and trying to figure out like what's important in all of that or what's time sensitive. So I'm happy to continue doing that through the end of the year. And if there are any emergencies, I can figure that out.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to, just so we don't have to totally rely on Michelle, but just if you get a chance to just check the queue, make sure there isn't any major security things, then that would be awesome. Otherwise, I mean, I think people kind of expect things to slow down a little bit anyway through the holidays. So
I am not.
Like, you have to be totally on top of it.
There are no. I won't be traveling, so if there is a fire, feel free to page me. Only for fires, because I won't be traveling. I won't be. The computer will be turned off, but you know, I'll still be here.
Yep, same goes for me. I'll be around, but I won't be on the computer. So if somebody pings me for something critical, then I can respond probably within 24 hours.
You can turn these things off?
No, you can't.
Just us.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, we can do another part-time style that we did heading into KubeCon as well, and just do that for the holiday season. That's it for this town meeting. So thanks everyone for coming along, and we'll see you in the new year.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
All right.